Welcome to the Pure Prison Podcast, a Society First production. My name is Shai Hillman. Before we begin, we want to give an introduction of our goals, and that is to provide a platform that identifies both the problem and the solutions to the criminal justice system. The purpose behind Pure Prison Podcast is to give a voice not only to those who have been impacted by the system, but also to those who are positively impacting the system. Society First wants to ensure that all guests feel free to express their thoughts and beliefs. With that being said, not all views and beliefs of those interviewed are necessarily the views of Society First. With that, we hope that we will inspire you to get involved, for it's only together that we will make a difference. Welcome back, everybody, to Pure Prison. We're so happy to have you here. Today in our studio, we have M.L. Smith. Again, she was with Dream Corps, but she is with Missourians. What is it? Missourians for Alternatives to the Death Penalty. And we're going to be discussing some things that have to do with that and something that's very close to our heart, and it's coming up very soon. So we're going to talk about that. And I'm going to go ahead and bring her in. Hey, hi, how are you today?
I'm good, Shai. How are you?
I'm so good. So we had you on a couple of weeks ago, but it was in a group discussion about Dream Corps and the program that you are going through, the cohorts program. But today we're going to talk about what you advocate for specifically. And a lot of our people who watch, they don't really know. I don't know a lot that's going on. So I know that something is coming up with Ernest. We spoke about it very briefly last time. So go ahead and talk.
Okay, well, thank you. First, thank you for inviting me back. I appreciate the opportunity, to speak about this serious issue. First, my name is Michelle Smith. I go by my initials ML. My title with my organization is Racial Justice Coordinator. I am with Missourians for Alternatives to the Death Penalty. So madpmo.org is our website as well as our social media handles. And what we do is advocate for abolition of the death penalty in our state as well as nationally. And we support the people who are currently on death row in our state and their families, and we support the legal teams that are fighting, for their lives, basically. It's very daunting work. It's something that you definitely have to be dedicated to. And so, in this area, the death penalty, capital punishment within the wider, view of the criminal injustice system is, a small part. However, it is one of the most impactful things because it's final. Once they, commit state sanctioned murder, there is no way to go back from that. So, we have executed innocent people in this country. And so these things, are very serious, and they definitely need to be highlighted. And so currently in our work, there is a man on our death row. His name is Ernest Lee Johnson, and we are really trying to uplift his story and humanize him because he is a sweet, older man. And he deserves mercy. He truly deserves mercy, and that is what we are fighting for. Um, so with Ernest's case, Ernest is intellectually disabled. And with being intellectually disabled, actually our country is not supposed to execute intellectually disabled people. And so that is the angle that the attorneys and are trying to save his life, and that we are trying to get attention to his case. In 2002, the Supreme Court ruled on a case called Atkins versus Virginia. The person's name was Atkins. And in 2002, they ruled that it's unconstitutional to execute an intellectually or mentally disabled person. However, um, with that ruling, states basically use whatever they, feel like using in order to determine if someone is intellectually disabled or mentally disabled. There are supposed to be, clinical, specifications. These are medical terms and medical uh, uh, decisions, and that they are supposed to use, quote, supposed to. However, that's not what's happening. So the fact that intellectually disabled people are still being executed because they are not being properly diagnosed and properly viewed in court. And so this is the reality with Ernest.
And this
And
is this is
yeah,
so I've seen it. I've seen it.
yeah, in Florida, yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah. And when they closed, I think I don't know if we had talked about this, but when they closed the state institutions for the mental health patients, where did they put them?
Mm-hmm.
In prisons.
Mm-hmm.
Um, how long has Ernest been serving his sentence for?
Well, Ernest has been on death row since 1995, is when the murders happened. He was convicted of murdering three people at, I believe, like a convenience store. He went in and robbed and killed these people. But Ernest had been in and out of jail for years. Since he was 18 years old, actually was the first time he was admitted to the Department of Corrections in Missouri. So, we have certain records, and when he was admitted during that time, they do an evaluation when you get to prison. And then that evaluation that they did on him, the case worker said he, has some disabilities. He probably will not be able to manage, his mental capacity and like having, control over himself back in society, and he would need a lot of structure, a lot of support, and those sort of things. So his issues have been known, since then within the system anyway. And he's actually had over years eight IQ tests. No, nine.
Eight,
He's had,
nine.
yes, nine IQ tests over the years, and eight of them he has been below the 70. The 70 of an IQ is what is determined to be, that level where you're intellectually disabled. And so he has been below that. His IQ is actually 67. Um, and so, but however, prosecutors and the state, they want convictions and they want the sentence that they want. They're not really concerned about if you actually are, mentally disabled or if you've had any other issues in your life. They want what they want. And so Ernest has actually had three sentencing trials over the years, because obviously he got new ones because there were errors in the trial, in the sentencing phases. And his last sentencing phase, I believe it happened in 2008, if I'm not mistaken. I have to go and look back. But in the last sentencing phase that he went through, the state basically told the jury, uh, don't pay any attention to the medical, because a doctor testified who did these, sort of testings, a
Of
psychiatrist.
course.
And the prosecutor said, oh, don't pay attention to that. Use your own common sense. Well, obviously, in this technical medical uh, decision, their common lay people, jurors are lay people. They don't know
They don't
these things.
have
So telling them to
filters.
use their own common sense resulted in Ernest getting sentenced to death again, because they did not take into consideration what actually is his reality, and the disabilities and the functions that he's not able to perform. One actually, interestingly enough, one juror has been interviewed by Ernest's defense team, and this juror said that um, Ernest was in the court, and he said he sat still. He wasn't fidgeting or moving. He sat still. He was basically not having any outbursts or doing anything. He was
Right.
basically sitting. And so the person who the juror said, I felt like he didn't have any intellectual disability because normally people couldn't sit that still for that long. These sorts of things.
Well, hold on. Here we go. Here we go. Hold on. So he sat still. How much medication is Ernest on, or was Ernest on? Okay, because if I, and that is, golly, man, how much medication? You know that man's on medication.
Exactly. And interestingly enough, his attorneys and his mitigation specialist, which is someone who assists him as well, they of course were there, and they said that Ernest, he's actually a really nice, quiet person. He's not. I guess there's some stereotype of if you have any mental disability or intellectual disability, you're some type of maniac or something. I don't
Mhm.
know why people think these things, but they've said that Ernest is pretty nice. He's pretty calm. He doesn't do anything that you would think.
Right,
And
outrageous.
she actually said he was mesmerized by her computer because she had
Oh,
a laptop. And of course, he's been in prison for so long, so he was kind of staring at her laptop and in a childlike fashion, mesmerized by that. And so and that's what she had said. She said he was really looking at my computer, so I don't know why that person thought, but the jury, because the prosecutor said use your own common judgment or common sense, that's what they knew, sadly. So he was convicted, and the prosecute. There is in court a burden of proof in a normal trial. So in a trial, the state has to prove you did something. You don't necessarily have to prove you didn't do it, correct? But the
correct.
prosecution has to prove that you did this particular thing in order to convict you.
Yes,
You sometimes a lot of defendants don't testify. A lot of times if the defense didn't believe that the prosecution even put on a good case, they won't really even put on their own case because the prosecution didn't prove anything. And so this is no different. So in a death penalty trial, by this Supreme Court ruling of Atkins, the prosecution is supposed to prove that the person does not have an intellectual disability. That's
okay.
their burden of proof.
So the prosecution has to prove that he is not
Yes,
intellectually
disabled. Correct.
disabled.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
However, that's not what happened.
I was
The
going to
prosecution,
say, when does that ever happen?
exactly right. Thank you. Exactly. So the prosecution told the jury in the instructions over and over that Ernest didn't prove that he had a intellectual disability, that his defense didn't prove that he had it in a positive.
Oh,
But
my
burden of
goodness.
proof is not on that side, it's on the prosecution side. And of course, the defense tried to correct at the time in court, but you're overruled in court, so of course you have to appeal. So their objections were overruled at that time. But when people's constitutional rights are violated, um, it's often seen as, from my experience and what I've seen,
Okay.
not a big deal.
It's not
You know,
what?
it's not a big deal. When your constitutional rights are violated in court, it's kind of like, oh, we'll fix it later. Oh, you can bring it up later. And you can bring it up later. However, that's no guarantee that it's going to be rectified. The issue that was the problem, there's no guarantee in appeals phase and later on it's actually going to be rectified. But I've actually seen, in court where someone's rights are violated, or the prosecution says something horrible and the defense objects and they're overruled. And it's like, okay, but even bringing it up later in appeal is not a guarantee. I feel like they need to fix it at that moment. But that's, of course, like you said, not what happens.
Right. And I'm going to have to agree with you because I mean, civil rights being violated automatically, I don't understand why the attorney doesn't say that's a civil rights violation right there. Because the rules are the rules are the rules. And I'm so glad that you brought this up because there's so many intricacies. Is that right?
Yeah.
That one phase goes through, and to have to sit there, how about not even knowing that your civil rights are being violated? That's and an appeals process, like you said, that is never a guarantee. That's never a
Exactly.
guarantee.
Yeah.
And the problem is just the red tape going through it. First, you're in prison, you have to go to the law library, you have to get hold of your attorney, you have to have meeting. that alone is 5 months of work.
Yes, it's difficult. Now, of course, with that, with capital cases, the person is, assigned immediately a
Oh,
appellate team, which is great.
really?
Yes,
So who
everyone.
gives them this? Who gives them this appellate team? The state?
So, in every region, there is a capital. What do they call it? I'm sorry, capital defense. Oh, we
Like
just call it capital office, but
a
in
team.
every region there are specific attorneys in the public defender of that state's region
Got
that
it.
handles capital cases.
Okay.
Um, so we just call it the capital office. I don't know. I apologize. The technical
Hey,
term.
that works for
Yeah.
me.
Yeah. So there's basically public defenders who only work on appealing capital cases. And these people dedicate themselves to this for years, 20, 30 years. So they definitely need to be commended.
Oh, I love it. Let me know who. You
Yeah.
know I love shining
We
those
support
lights.
them. Yeah. Now the attorneys, because of it's an ongoing, case
No.
in court, they can't be too public. They basically have to file whatever they're going to file in court. So that's why organizations like mine, we put it out in the media and social media, and not necessarily just on those legal issues,
Yeah.
but also on the fact that these are people, and your worst mistake does not define who you are forever in your entirety. And for a person with an intellectual disability like Ernest, that deserves mercy, and I believe I sent you a picture of Ernest. But
Did.
he reminds me of a person, when I was young. We have family members who have intellectually disabled uncles or whatever, and he seems like the sweetest person. And actually, one reason that he has this intellectual disability, his family, of course, this is Missouri. He was born in 1960 in a rural area. There was a lot of discrimination, segregation. His father was actually a sharecropper. His mother had an intellectual disability as well, and she drank. So fetal alcohol syndrome is one of the main things that determine if a person will have an intellectual disability. And so it was determined that Ernest did suffer from fetal alcohol syndrome, which they call it fetal alcohol spectrum disorder. So
Yes.
Ernest suffered from that, and because like I said, his mother had a lot of issues in her life as well. His family, as most people who are in the criminal justice system who are poor, who are Black, they've had struggles, abuse, neglect, mental issues.
So
So
many
many
traumas.
are not helped
Right.
by school, by authorities, by the child welfare systems. There is little help for people. But later on, when a person does some horrible thing like this, they're immediately thrown away. So we're just saying that we don't want to throw people away. We want to give them the mercy and that empathy that they've never received before, when they really could have used it in their earlier years. So
That's right.
that's my main thing.
That's right. And that so much of what you said, everything. My organization that I'm affiliate that is
Mhm.
Society First, and for us, that's what it is. First of all, we need to cultivate a society that has compassion and empathy once again, because we've lost it. And we know that happened eras ago when all of this nonsense with the, hard on or drugs and all that came down.
Yeah.
Even Nixon, it was started back then,
Mhm.
So when all of that happened, it has numbed us so much over these years. And we believe that, people deserve second chances also. And it's not that you shouldn't be punished for the crime that you've committed and do time, but let's do it reasonably. Sentencing should be fair. Compassion and mercy should be involved, especially with mentally disabled individuals. There's so many people. There's a gentleman on death row right now that I speak to in our state, and this gentleman had about seven case file boxes that came in of just his mental records from his childhood, and none of it was taken into consideration. And that appalls me as a formerly incarcerated person, as a person who pays my taxes out here, and someone who lives in the society.
I'm glad you brought up the fact of being a person out in society, and that is definitely one thing that we uplift. Our society today is moving away from these barbaric practices as a whole. In my city specifically, and I am located in Missouri in St. Louis, there was a death penalty trial 2 months ago, and the person had like a 2 week trial, and he was convicted of the crime. And during the sentencing phase, the jury did not sentence him to death; they gave him life, and that told us that our city is moving away from this, even though they did, find this person guilty of the crimes. They said, we don't, this is not who we are, this is not what we want to do, we are not trying to get someone killed in our name. And so as a society, we definitely have to uplift that reality. We are past that. People always say this is 2020, this is 2021. Well, this is 2021, and we need to stop state murdering people. And of course, let's talk about the fact that the death penalty is a throwback from lynchings. Okay, so these are all things that are related. We have maps. We did some research, and there's an organization called Death Penalty Information Center. It's dpic.org, and it's an amazing website.
Right.
And they collect the data. It's so much data and so much stats on there. You can look up just about anything. And DPIC have made maps. And in our state, the map of lynchings in a certain time period, I'm going to say 1890. And I'm just throwing it out there because I can't quite remember what year. But the map of lynchings in Missouri, and you overlay that with a map of death people who've been executed, almost the same map.
No.
Yes, because the people in the places where racism was just out there, where they didn't mind making sure that they kept Black people in their place, and these sorts of things where they felt emboldened to lynch people. Even today, when murders happen, they're totally offended, and they have chosen these punishments. And so it definitely happens. Those maps can be overlaid, but more and more we're becoming more enlightened people, more open-minded. We're coming into a new era of that empathy, and as a whole, the country and our community, thankfully, is moving away from this barbaric. Because it's the drugs. Arizona recently decided to buy what drugs? Horrible.
What about the gas chambers? The gas chambers.
You can't tell me the people of Arizona think that's okay. You can't tell me this. The majority of citizens of Arizona think it's okay to kill people with Holocaust era drugs. I'm not going to believe that, because it doesn't even make any sense.
No.
But that's the way that especially the powers that be, they're entrenched in wanting to keep that power and control. So they're going to kind of do anything that they can to, keep these practices up. But as a society, we're moving away from this. And as we unify and make our voices heard, they're going to hear us.
And that's what I always say. We take anybody. Anybody, business, individual, organization, whomever, if you have an issue with a solution, let me come society first. We will use you, and we want to be together. And that's the thing, when we all come together, us as families who have incarcerated loved ones, us who advocate the ex-incarcerated, that is a mess. There are how many million people incarcerated right now in the U.S.? Like 2.3 million?
Incarcerated and people under state control, so parole, probation, those types of things. The last numbers I heard was 2.3 million people.
We outnumber.
Yes, they and that really takes us as the masses to unify and to put the people that we want and that are going to support our issues in there. We have a few right now. We do have a few, but it's definitely going to have take a mass movement and getting away
Yes.
from, the fact that these elections take millions and billions of dollars, and really start putting up the people who represent us and who are going to go there and do, what we want them to do. So that's really something that we definitely have to focus on. And there are definitely groups out there who are focusing on those voting and election issues, and disenfranchisement and those sorts of things. So yeah, the more we unify, the more we get our point across. And
Absolutely.
you mentioned Dream Corps when I got on, so I did want to say that Dream Corps' motto is those who are closer to the problems are closest to the solution, but furthest from the resources. So once we connect those people who are closest to the
Yes.
problem to the resources in order to use those, to solve the problems, we'll definitely make headway. And so that's what we believe.
I love this. I love this. Um, I like. I'm pretty brand new, and I'm new to this. Society First has been around for a minute, but we're just now forming our team,
Okay.
and um, the networking and the people that have reached out. It's amazing, and I love the nationwide. It just says so much to me, and I go to sleep at night just praying and thanking God, that people are starting to come together. And I love
Yeah.
sharing this. Anything that we can do here at Pure Present or Society First ML, please reach out. If there's anything that, as a Florida representation that you need, we will be there. Of course, I personally don't want the death penalty. I used to be in favor of the death penalty. And I have changed that view a long time ago, but it's a personal view, and I don't think it should be around. And I think there's a lot of other ways that we can punish and correct.
And restore the victims, restore the person who committed the crime, because obviously they were not okay. And get, there is something in restoration. there
Yeah,
is a there is a place of healing and wholeness in that restoration. So that's really what we want: mercy, restoration. And to not there are people like Ernest has been incarcerated since 19 for this 1995. He's 61 years old right now. He's also had a brain tumor some years ago that was removed, which is one reason why the attorneys are fighting and we're uplifting, because Ernest has seizures, and it's possible that these lethal injection drugs will cause him to go into, a seizure, which would be definitely cruel and unusual. But yeah, so just that empathy and that restoration, and to uplift the stories and the people, and center what really matters. And nationally, we have so much stuff going on right now. We were bombarded with so much, information and so much going on. And sometimes to focus on those things that really have the hugest impact, like a life,
mhm,
that last, well, I don't know if it was last month, but recently there was a man named Quentin Jones in Texas. I believe it was a month ago. Quentin was executed, sadly.
yes,
And it was so many people supporting him, and who, were so devastated by that, because of course he did something horrible. He killed his great aunt when he was, I believe, 18 or 19. He
mhm,
was on drugs, he was young. Addicted and had a lot of issues, and he killed a elder in his family. Definitely devastating. And the rest of his family came together with him over years. They forgave him. They I imagine these people were Christian, and they took him in, and forgave him, and covered him and loved him. And of course he got clean, and he started educating himself and trying to heal. And of course he felt bad for what he did
of
to
course.
his great aunt. And his family went to Governor, what's the man? I can't think of the man's name right now, in Texas, but it'll come to me in a second. But his family went to the governor and pleaded with them, because they
Yes.
were the family of the victim and the accused,
Mhm.
right? Because they always say, our system says, we're doing this for the family. This is justice for the family. We're doing this for the family of the victim. Da da da. Okay, well, this is the family of the victim, right? And accused, and they're telling you, do not murder our nephew, our son, our cousin. He he's sorry. He did do this, years ago. And we've forgiven him. We, brought him back from that dark place he was, and we don't want to bury another family member.
Right.
And Abbott, Governor Abbott is his name. And Governor Abbott said, and the parole board in Texas said, whatever, this is what we do. So that's definitely that hardness in the system. But like I said, with us coming together and uplifting his stories, and Quentin actually, and I don't know if you've seen it, Quentin made a video to be shared after he was executed.
No, I haven't seen it.
I have to send you the link.
Because I was following that.
And in the video, he said, "You'll probably listen to this and see this after I'm dead."
Oh my
God. Said, and he went on to say, I appreciate everyone who fought for me, everyone who stood up for me, everyone who, just cared. I appreciate you all and keep fighting. And honestly, that's what we really have to do. Yeah, I have to say, it was very emotional. I can't even imagine someone's recording something saying, "You'll see this when I'm gone." How, devastating could that be for him? But he gives us strength. So those stories, people like him and Ernest, and people who are redeemable. We are redeemable. We're not trash.
That's
we are people. We're humans.
That's right. And you're not your crime. You're not who you were 20 years ago. And you know what? That's another thing about Society First. It has the ready or not proposal. And, if you are the same year or person that you were 20 years ago, then that's going to be seen. But in so many cases, just look, because they're not. They're not.
Exactly. I definitely appreciate you giving me this chance to speak on this, and they're definitely not. So
anytime.
The change.org petition is change.org save Ernest Johnson with dashes between save Ernest Johnson. Yeah.
Right there on the bottom, guys.
And, MADPMO. And so, like I said, we do it in Missouri. We uplift nationally. Actually, one man from our state is on federal death row. His name is Billy Allen, and he is actually innocent. And his family, is fighting for him. So we support anyone who is going through these issues, and just give them our support and our solidarity. So
well, I don't know if I ever told you or not, but Missouri has a very soft spot in my heart because that's my birth state. That's where I was born. I was born in the Boot Hill, down there in the bottom.
Okay, I know people I know several people. Poplar Bluff,
Kennett. I was born in Kennett, and my mama lives in Haytime.
Yes.
Yeah, my mama lives there. It has been a pleasure. You're always welcome back. If you have anything, please, Pure Prison, throw it on there. Email me. I'd love to see this video also.
I sure will send it to you. And thank you so much. I appreciate you, Shai, so much. And appreciate you for
you
today.
Absolutely. He's in my prayers. And so are you. So are you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, you guys. Well, once again, thank you for coming back to Pure Prison. Hi, there's ML. I accidentally put your face up there. All right. You guys, thank you so much for joining us. Please check it out, www.madpmo.org. And also, if you can, go to this petition. It is one of the change petitions, change.org/save-Ernest-Johnson. It's right there. Right there. It's been my pleasure. I'll see you guys soon. Shortly after recording with ML, I received this email. On June 29, 2021, the Missouri Supreme Court issued an execution warrant for Ernest Johnson. Johnson is scheduled to be executed on October 5th, 2021 at 6 p.m. at the Eastern Reception and Diagnostic Correctional Center in Bonne Terre, Missouri. Johnson still has an active habeas petition in which the state is ordered to respond by July 6th. Elise Max, State Director of Missourians for Alternatives to the Death Penalty, said, "I am not surprised that the Attorney General's office is pushing for the execution of an intellectually disabled man, But I am very concerned that the courts would set an execution date when they are waiting for a response from the state regarding the constitutionality of the intellectual disability determination. Not only will Johnson's execution violate his Eighth Amendment rights to be free from cruel and unusual punishment, Johnson should not be eligible for execution because he meets the objective standards for having an IDD. Please sign and share the petition at www.change.org/save-Ernest-Johnson.